It's not time to move on. No one believes that it's time to move on except for those whose best interest it is to move on, and that would be Joe Biden and Joe Biden by extension. So let's see what Mrs. Jill Biden had to say. So this is the NPR article that everyone is talking about, and it's titled, Jill Biden Says It's Time to Move On from Anita Hill Controversy. This is by Danielle Kurtzleben. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Jill Biden is accomplished in her own right. She holds 2 master's degrees and a doctoral degree. But then, her husband is the former vice president and a top contender for the Democratic presidential nomination for 2020. And so, while she has maintained her own career, she has also taken her husband's aspirations in stride. As the former vice president has launched his presidential campaign, she's had to prepare for the massive commitment required for a White House run, along with the scrutiny. That has meant defending her husband against uncomfortable accusations, both old and new. When it comes to the recently renewed controversy over how Joe Biden led the 1991 Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Clarence Thomas, in which law professor Anita Hill accused Thomas of persistent sexual harassment, Jill Biden tells NPR's Rachel Martin in part, "It's time to move on." Biden talked to Martin about her new book, Where the Light Enters, as well as her husband's presidential run. On Vice President Biden's role in the Clarence Thomas hearings. Joe Biden's role in the Thomas confirmation hearings is one of the darkest clouds hanging over Biden's 2020 bid. At the time of the hearings, Biden chaired the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he has faced heavy criticism over his handling of the hearings, particularly because of corroborating witnesses who were not called to appear before the committee to back Hill's story up. And this is something that a lot of people really have a problem with, is the fact that Joe Biden didn't call those witnesses up. I believe there were 6 witnesses, and I also believe they were women, but I will have to fact check that were ready to testify, but who were not called up. So Joe Biden, you wish you could have done something. That's the something that you could have done right there. In recent weeks, Joe Biden called Anita Hill, but in an interview with the New York Times, Hill wouldn't say she considered that call an apology. After telling ABC's The View, "I don't think I treated her badly," Biden also recently told ABC's Good Morning America, "I take responsibility that she did not get treated well. I take responsibility for that." Biden, "I watched the hearings like most other Americans, and so Joe said, as I did, we believed Anita Hill. He voted against Clarence Thomas, and as he has said, he's called Anita Hill, they've talked, they've spoken, and he said, he feels badly. He apologized for the way the hearings were run, and so now it's time to move on." I wish that Jill Biden would put herself in Anita Hill's shoes. Would she think it's time to move on when a supposed Democratic ally treats her that way, runs the hearings that way? It's not time to move on. It's only time to move on because it suits your presidential campaign, Jill and Joe Biden. Martin, why did he wait until just before he was running for president to call her? Jill Biden, well, I guess it was just not the right time maybe, so he wanted to call her. I think he didn't know whether she would take his call, and he was so happy that she did take his call and they spoke. And I think I think they came to an agreement. Martin, did you encourage him to make that overture? Jill Biden, no, that was his decision. Now let's talk about the fact that Joe Biden now has his own sexual sexual harassment allegations. Women have accused him of sniffing their hair, which is super weird, inappropriately touching them, inappropriately kissing them. None have risen to the level of a criminal accusation, but it's still harassment. It's still very creepy, and it's still a problem that's been documented time and time again in photographs and on video. So this has to be uncomfortable for Jill Biden to respond to about her husband, but she has to respond to it. On accusations to Vice President Biden of unwanted touching, Lucy Flores, a former Nevada Democratic Assemblywoman, accused Joe Biden this year of kissing the back of her head and sniffing her hair at a 2014 event when she was a candidate to be Nevada's lieutenant governor. It was the first of several similar accusations Biden faced in the weeks leading up to his campaign launch. Joe Biden responded with a video saying, "Governing, quite frankly, life for that matter, is about connecting." Words that Jill Biden echoes here. He also said, "I get it," and he said he would change how he campaigns. Shortly after that video, however, he joked about the controversy at a campaign event. The fact that he joked about the controversy at a campaign event shows you what an SHIT head he is. He connects with people, and I think that's one of his strengths. And he heard Lucy Flores loud and clear, and he said he would take responsibility and he would, honor people's space. So you don't think Jill Biden has ever said, "Why are you touching and kissing all these other women? It's weird"? I would hope that she would have said that. And I write about that in my book, when I talked about when I met the Biden family and they were different. They were a very affectionate family. My family wasn't that affectionate, so that took me a little while to get used to that. But then I saw how Joe connected with people. And now these are different times. Joe realizes that these are different times. And believe me, he's very conscious of, how he interacts with men and women today. So there you go. The headline is it's time to move on from the Anita Hill controversy. Obviously, that is not the case, and it's shocking, and she is just as tone deaf as her husband is. I don't understand these people. And it must be the result of being wealthy, white, totally disconnected, totally establishment people. That's all I can think about is how could you think it's time to move on? How could you not continue apologizing? It's okay. It's not okay, but it's, people make mistakes in their past. How they handle things in the future is very telling. And the fact that Joe Biden did not directly apologize, and now the fact that his wife is saying it's time to move on, it's all part of PR, and that's all it is PR to move past this, and some of the older white generation is going to be just fine and say, oh, they addressed it, it's fine. Or maybe they didn't think it was a problem with the Anita Hill hearings in the first place. Maybe they didn't even believe Anita Hill, even though they were Democrats. And not that sexual harassment should have a side, but the reality was that it did have a side. The GOP tended to be on Clarence Thomas's side, while Democrats tended to be on Anita Hill's side. So that is something I will closely follow, because what happened with Anita Hill is representative of a much larger problem with Joe Biden.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com, where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.